casserole. But that was pretty good for carrot stuff. I like that. So, but thanks to our cooks and to all the folks who helped serve it. Several announcements we want to make. Wait a minute. What did I write down here? Oh, okay. None of the women in mission folks are here. But could you make some announcements about the basket thing? Tell about the basket thing. Okay.
So the basket thing is March 24th and 25th. Our women's ministry team is sponsoring this retreat weekend and would love for all of the ladies to sign up. This is for all ages. Yvette Jackson, who many of you know, Robert Jackson, that was the intern here, Patrick's wife, Yvette, is the keynote speaker for that weekend. And there's also a worship team that is coming in to lead worship during that. So it's going to be fantastic. Plan to come. Total cost is $20. That includes dinner and a continental breakfast the next morning. You can't beat it. But come and let us unpack your basket and then help you put things of strength in the basket to carry with you as you go forward. So that is coming up March 24th and 25th, and Lynn and Kathy would really like you to sign up. Online? Yep.
Well, now, since Allison is here, I'm going to escort her over to this board over here and say a few words about this.
This is our prayer board for Disciple Now weekend. Next weekend is Disciple Now for our students. This is a huge weekend. We have 33 students, 15 leaders, 5 host homes, plus all the other people that help put this weekend together. And really, we're asking if you would take a name from this board and simply pray for them. There were all those names up here in pink. You take off the pink, sign your name on the blue so that they know who is praying for them, and that's it. I'm not asking for money. I'm not asking for you to drive back into the church, although you're welcome to do either of those things. We really just want your prayers. Will you cover them and surround them and pray that hedge of protection for a safe and wonderful weekend for our students?
She does such a good job, I'm going to ask her to make another announcement. Now, have you seen what's out in the hallway on that table out there? Soup. All right. Now, tell me, how long can we bring soup in?
All donations have to be on that table by 10 a.m. Sunday. Currently, before tonight, third place was the round table class, second place was the disciples, and first place was studio at the moment. But I hear that there are classes making a push. So all cans have to be in by 10 a.m. Sunday morning, and then after worship, we will present the trophy and our rings to the 2023 Super Bowl champions.
We don't get to be on TV when you do this? Oh, okay. Thank you, Allison. Thank you. Okay, and the other thing is this coming Friday night is Classics in the Courtyard. I don't know what the movie is. Fantasia? Okay. So I know if you've been to some of those, I know you will enjoy that. And Lenten small groups, you still have an opportunity to sign up for those. You need to go online and make sure, find a group that works well for you. And so I hope you will do that. And that hall reminded me, and this is part of our prayer time, about the tragic situation in Turkey and Syria. and that if you choose to send a donation, some of your resources can be sent to the International Mission Board, and it's called Send Relief, and that money will go. There's nothing cut off the top for administration. It will go straight to the needs of those folks in Syria and in Turkey. So I hope you will do that. Let's see, anything else? I signed up on this board over here, and so I will be keeping Bellamy Smith in my prayers for Disciple Now weekend, and so and she's over here, and so she has a look of shock and amazement on her face. But anyway, so I hope you will find a name of somebody that you know or don't know, and pray for these folks. Okay, that's all the announcements. I told Jim that I'd try not to embarrass him, so thus far I haven't done it, I don't think. All right, looking at our prayer list, we've already mentioned the earthquake victims in Turkey and Syria. It's beyond my comprehension to think 11,000+ more people have been killed through that earthquake. So remember, people that do not have names or faces for us, but they're still children of God, you want to remember. And the JMU students that were killed in that accident, two of those young men grew up in our preschool here at church. So it's Luke Ferguson and Nicholas Troutman. And so remember their families. Betty Woodward. Betty has been in Parham Doctors Hospital. She is improving, so she hopes to be able to go home soon. David DeJean has been in Memorial Regional. David went home today, so we remember him. Netta Sue Benton. Netta Sue's going to have surgery tomorrow. She's had surgery several weeks ago and just has not healed as they had hoped. So she's going to have some more surgery tomorrow. Are there other people that you would want to mention tonight? Okay. Then let's pray. God, I thank you for the fellowship that we share around the tables. What a great opportunity to get to know people maybe that we haven't known, but then to deepen the friendships and relationships we already have. Thank you for calling us to be church and for calling us to be family. Father, you've heard our prayer concerns tonight. Some folks we know, some we don't, but without a doubt, they're all yours. We pray for the tragedy in Turkey and Syria and the lives that have been lost there and those whose lives are changed forever. Again, we don't know who they are, names or faces, but they're yours, and we commend them to you. And we pray for Disciple Now weekend for our youth. Those kinds of experiences can be life-changing experiences. So thank you for those who are caring and who are opening their homes and who are giving leadership. And may what happens this weekend for this coming weekend for our teenagers, let it be a growing, changing weekend for them. God, I thank you for the program that we're having tonight. I thank you for Dr. Whipple and his leadership in these programs across the years. He makes us wiser and better by the programs that he presents. Be with us now. Thank you for all the folks that are here. Thank you for calling us to be church and family. For I pray in Jesus' name. Amen. Okay, Dr. Whipple. Oh, there he is. Sweated that one out. I thought he didn't show up. So, a lot of you know Terry Whipple, and I deeply appreciate what Terry does for us in the life of our church. Thank you.
I was jilted tonight. Matthew Lohr had to go to work. And you see his name up here as my co-conspirator. Matthew has been a huge help identifying the videos that we'll include in tonight's program. And he's recorded a tour of the church and some of the emergency equipment that's available to everyone here in the church, regardless of your expertise. If you'll just know where this equipment is, you will contribute immensely to any emergency that might have need of it. So I miss Matthew Lohr tonight, but I appreciate his help. How many people want to live longer? Well, get them up. If I were to fall down up here tonight, like right now, and stop breathing, how many of you would come help me out? Just raise your hands. Thank you. How many of you would know what to do if I were unconscious and not breathing? That's maybe 10. 10 people knowing what to do in a crowd this size is an enormous number. But it could be 6, 8, 10 times that many. Tonight we want to talk about the importance of being an informed bystander in your community. This is not a subject tonight that is intended to be grim. It's intended to be joyous, informative, helpful, life-saving, and in your hands. All of the programs that we attempt to put together for those who participate in the Physician Within are designed to make you more informed, to make you more understanding about common symptoms that you may have. But if your symptoms are death, that is a serious symptom. And it would be really nice to have someone standing around who knows what to do about it. So I want to invite all of you tonight to give some really serious thought to learning what to do about coming upon someone who experiences that misfortune. It's a lot more common. It's a lot more commonplace than any of us really realize. And I'll share some of the statistics with you that may be scary, but it's not intended to be. I'm hopeful that it will just be informative, and I hope it'll be motivating to help you to reach down inside yourself and say, I can do that. I can do that, because you can. And even if you're not a professional, and even if you've never had a formal class or course in first aid, you can save a life with just a little bit of understanding. So we're going to repeat this several times tonight because repetition helps to make seeds germinate and grow and take root and let you hold on to them. With a little bit of luck, I might be able to advance the slides. But I'm not having any luck. Where is my right hand, Alan Cumbia? How about my left hand, Richard Such, Rodney? Rodney, I've pushed both buttons that he showed me. He did, but he suggested that I use the buttons. Oh, ha. See, I'm not the only one, but this is just about, this is useful time. Get a little feel for how much time is going by, and just imagine that as I proposed, I had fallen down up here and quit breathing for that long. And it's taken this long for someone to come up and give us some electricity, which I would desperately need. How many of you have ever attempted CPR? Hands up. How many of you have attended a formal CPR instruction class for certification? Good show. I'm going to recommend that you do that at least every 2 years or 3 years. Attend one of those classes. What we're going to do tonight is review the techniques for CPR, which stands for cardiopulmonary resuscitation. We're going to review the use of the AED, the automatic electronic defibrillator device. The review is only going to be an introduction. It will teach you something, but it will not give you a certificate of expertise. Some people would object to my saying this, but most would not, especially those who pass out and stop breathing. They would not object to my saying that if someone is a bystander and knows a little bit about CPR and responds or intervenes, they would not object. You really can do no harm by doing what you understand to be the proper thing to do. Now, if you're trained to do it and you've gone through one of the certification classes, that's all the better. So let me encourage you to do that. If you don't know where to find them, you can look them up online. You can call the American Red Cross, which is available with the telephone operator, or you can look or you can call any firehouse in the neighborhood for recommendations, or you can simply Google or look on your internet for CPR classes, Richmond, Virginia. There are a lot of different people who are certified as instructors who can get you enrolled in a class to make you a card-carrying responder. But if you don't do that, try to remember at least what we review tonight. Okay. It worked. There is a difference, as many of you know, but not all, I'm sure. There's a difference in a heart attack and a sudden cardiac arrest. A sudden cardiac arrest, or SCA, differs from a heart attack or myocardial infarction. Myocardial means heart muscle. Infarction means that it's been denied blood supply, and as you know, every living tissue requires blood supply. So if the heart muscle has lost its blood supply, by definition, that is a myocardial infarction. That muscle will cease to function. And if it ceases to function, the heart will not beat effectively to throw blood out into your bloodstream, and particularly up to your brain and down to your kidneys. A sudden cardiac arrest, or SCA, differs from that. Either one could result in sudden death, either one, and it's really hard to tell the difference without some sophisticated testing. Let's look at the heart attack. As I mentioned, this is due to, the heart attack is due to a disruption in the heart muscle circulation. As you can see on the right side of this slide, this is a diagram of a heart that has blood vessels going down the surface of the heart muscle. Those blood vessels are coronary arteries. They carry nutrition and oxygen to the muscle fibers. The coronary arteries are the first branches coming off of the aorta as it leaves the heart. And they're responsible for the nutrition of your heart muscle. If those coronary arteries get clogged up, and they do, in most of us, I would venture to say that maybe all but one person in this room at the present time has some of this plaque in one or more of the coronary arteries. This plaque is made of fatty deposits. The fatty deposits will build up underneath the lining of the artery and cause the lining of the artery to bulge out into the hollow portion of the artery and basically constrict the artery from the inside. Okay? It chokes it off from the inside. And sometimes that fatty plaque will actually rupture through the lining of the coronary arteries and spill out into the artery and wash downstream. Is that a good thing for getting rid of the plaque? No, it's not. Because as the fat washes downstream, it will plug up the artery farther downstream as it gets smaller and smaller. Anything like this that interferes with the blood supply to the heart muscle is going to produce a heart attack or myocardial infarction or symptomatic angina. Symptomatic angina occurs when the blood supply to the heart muscle is reduced. It's not completely choked off, but the muscle cramps and it hurts. And it's unrelenting, heavy pain in the chest. That's angina. So what about the sudden cardiac arrest? This has nothing to do with circulation. Nothing to do with circulation at all. The sudden cardiac arrest is an electrical phenomenon. If you look at the yellow illustrations on this graphic, the yellow illustrations are nerves. They conduct electrical current within the wall of the heart. They originate up here at the very top of the, well, I blew that, didn't I? Let's see if I can back it up. There. They originate up here at the very top of the heart in this little node, which has the ability to spark spontaneously and send electrical currents down the yellow fibers. And the currents go through the upper chambers of the heart, and then they come back together to this area right here, which is called the SA node, and it harnesses those electric shocks. Thank you. Harnesses those electric shocks and redistributes them again down through the lower chambers of the heart to cause the heart to contract and pump blood out of the chambers and up into the aorta. And remember I said as soon as the blood comes into the aorta, it goes off into those earliest branches, which are the coronary arteries, to supply nutrition to the heart muscle. Any questions about that? The difference in these two, myocardial infarction or heart attack and an SCA, is that sudden cardiac arrest has no symptoms whatsoever in the beginning. Look around your tables, each of you, so that the population is a little smaller, and pick someone at your table. You don't have to point to them, but pick someone at your table that you think is most likely to experience a sudden cardiac arrest. Don't point them out, but pick somebody and know who it is. Okay, you got it? I'm going to suggest to you that the odds are about 1 out of 6 that you're wrong, because there's about 6 people to choose from at each table, and you cannot tell, I cannot tell, we cannot tell who is about to have or who is inclined to have a sudden electrical event or cardiac arrest at any minute. Remember the basketball player that had a sudden football player who had a sudden cardiac arrest about 3 weeks ago to 4 weeks ago on the field? Perfectly specimen of health. And like that, just from getting a blow in the chest, not a severe blow, but a perfectly timed blow to the chest, it upset the electrical conduction in his heart, and his heart quit beating. It can happen to anyone. And so if you've chosen somebody at your table to wish this upon, maybe, or not, you're probably wrong, because the odds are that anybody else at the table is as likely to have that sudden cardiac arrest. For some reason, there's a short circuit that occurs, and it may be due to a blunt blow to the chest that simply shakes the heart. It may be due to an electrical shock that we encounter. It may be due to a fate, an act of fate that nobody can identify. But we're all at risk of this sudden cardiac arrest. And we die suddenly. So how do people die? The brain really is the life center organ. The brain is responsible, even in our subconscious times, to tell the lungs when we need more oxygen. And so when we go to sleep, or when we're knocked unconscious usually, we'll continue to breathe spontaneously because our sensors, our body sensors are saying, I need more oxygen to help me burn the fuel that's coming through my blood supply. And so the brain will trigger the muscles to have us take a breath and then blow it back out. That can be done voluntarily, of course, but it's an automatic function of our brain. The brain does so many other things too automatically. But when the brain loses its blood supply, it goes to sleep and it quits working and sending these signals. The heart pumps blood to the brain. If the heart is not pumping blood to the brain doesn't get the oxygen and the sugars that it needs, and it quits working and telling us spontaneously to take another breath. So we stop breathing. Those are brain-generated signals due to the circulation that's nourishing the cells in the brain. So if the heart stops pumping for whatever reason, the brain cells die. The brain cells die, then our automatic life-saving functions are arrested. But before the brain cells die, first they stop working. They sort of go into a somnolent period. They quit sending out the signals and commands all over our body that we're accustomed to. So when the brain cells stop working but haven't yet died, we appear to be unresponsive and even stop breathing. But if we can get oxygen to those brain cells before they actually die, they can wake up again and continue to work. They can be resuscitated. They can be revived and go ahead and function. So that there's this short period of time in which the fragile cells of the brain, starved for oxygen because the heart quit pumping, that we have as bystanders or passers-by to respond to somebody like me who has fallen down and quit breathing. There's a short period of time, moments really, minutes really, but no more than 3 minutes or 4 minutes before the brain cells begin to choke off and die. What are the risk factors for either a myocardial infarction or a heart attack or a sudden cardiac arrest? There are different diseases. One's vascular, one is neurological. Completely different and unrelated. Same end effect. Here are the risk factors. Older people are more likely. People with high blood pressure are more likely to have either one of these things. People with high cholesterol, obesity, diabetes, people who smoke. The reasons for all of these things have not been worked out clearly by anyone. But we do know that by association, these are risk factors that increase the likelihood of our having a heart attack or a sudden cardiac arrest. Here's some statistics about sudden cardiac arrest. And this is data from 2018. Picture yourself as an individual here tonight taking in some information that you can take with you in your memory. Picture you in some of these circumstances, or at least as a witness. 37% of sudden cardiac arrests occur outside the hospital. Of course, people are sicker. People in the hospital are sicker. They're in poorer condition. They're in a more frail state of existence. So we expect them to be victims of sudden cardiac arrest more commonly than the rest of us who are dining out tonight or going to an educational program or driving home with other people on the road. But a third of these things occur when we innocent people are just minding our own business. In this single year, 356,000 sudden cardiac arrests occurred in the United States. That's a lot. 56,000 people. 7,000 of them were in children, and that's under the age of 15. So nobody is immune to it. Without a bystander's intervention, only 10% or 11% of these events survive, which means that 89% passed away with no pre-warning, no known illness, no other symptoms. Could happen to anybody at your table at any time. So bystander intervention during those fragile moments is important. And those who could intervene, who would come up here if I passed out, thank you for volunteering with your raising your hands. But intervention on the part of a bystander is important. There are laws that have been passed called Good Samaritan laws that state, and these are laws passed state by state, and most states have them. Virginia does. That state that if an individual intervenes with the best of intentions to save somebody's life or to help them, they cannot be held responsible for any failure to successfully revive or resuscitate that individual. All right? Now that's just a convenient little out. The key, though, is that you have to intervene in order to qualify for that law. If you just sit there or stand there, the fact that Virginia has such a law is meaningless. Probably the first bystander was the Samaritan, the Good Samaritan, who is described in Luke chapter 10, verse 24. And you all know that story. No, he didn't resuscitate someone from a cardiac arrest, but here's an individual that he witnessed who was having health problems, blunt trauma, bleeding, left for dead, and this fellow stopped to intervene. He was a bystander. You can see in this image, there are three others, probably the robbers who are fleeing the scene. Their intention is probably to let him lie there and die. If we witness this sort of thing with somebody that collapses, like me on this stage, if we witness that and don't do something, we're as guilty, probably, as the three robbers who left him. So the Samaritan was the first bystander. Here's the role, really, of rescuing efforts for either heart attack or sudden cardiac arrest. The role of this rescue effort is cardiopulmonary resuscitation. In this event, the rescuer compresses the heart to make it pump blood out to the brain. We don't care about the other organs or the muscles or anything. We care about saving brain cells. And if we just compress the heart sufficiently and then release to let it fill up again passively with new blood, we can get oxygen to the brain to save those cells. The rescuer may inflate the lungs as well. That's the cardiopulmonary resuscitation. And I'll tell you a little bit about the history of these things in just a minute. But reinflating the lungs is not an imperative to rendering CPR. Basically, the P has been dropped out of this. Cardiac resuscitation does not require any artificial breathing for an individual and running the risk of communicable diseases. Hold that thought and we'll come back to it. There is enough oxygen still left in the passive blood that's flowing back to the heart. There's still enough oxygen in that blood to save the brain cells if we can just pump it up there. All right? So if we cut ourselves out at the end of our arm or our leg and it bleeds, that blood still has oxygen in it. So it's already been to wherever it needs to go, and it's effectively spent and on its way back to the heart. But it has enough oxygen in it to save the brain cells. So, tell you a little bit about the artificial electrical defibrillator. This is for individuals who have the sudden cardiac arrest. The defibrillators provide an electrical shock to the heart muscle and sort of restart the engine. It resets those yellow nerve fibers to zero. It resets them like on your patio heater to ignite. And when the electric shock is administered to those nerves, they will stutter for a moment and then go passively inactive. But if they're passively inactive, those little yellow nodes that we talked about may reinitiate normal cardiac rhythm signals. Okay, that's the role of the electrical defibrillator, basically to paralyze the heart nerves momentarily and allow it to reboot itself. The electrical shock is provided by putting a patch in 2 locations on the victim's torso. One is over the right upper chest. The other is over the left lower chest, so that the current is going to pass diagonally through the heart. Okay? Right upper chest, left lower chest, shock, and reset the heart's cadence. I want you to watch a video that is a TED Talk that was produced by this gentleman, Mike Broderick. It's really impressive. We may need to turn the volume up just a little bit.
911, where's your emergency?
Results Radio Town Square Media.
What's the address?
5100 South Tennis Lane. A guy at his desk just collapsed on the ground.
5100 South Tennis Lane in Sioux Falls?
Yep, he's unconscious. Hurry.
Okay.
Send an ambulance.
My partner's going to send an ambulance, okay? What's the phone number you're calling from?
929.
Okay, so I'm going to stay on the phone with you and ask you some questions, okay? Are you with him now?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. How old is he?
He's probably in his late 50s.
Okay. Is he awake right now?
Is he awake? He's unconscious.
Okay. Is he breathing?
Hurry. No,
Is he breathing?
turning purple.
He's not breathing? Okay.
I don't think. A little, yes. Hurry.
That's okay. Is there a defibrillator available? Send someone to get it now and tell me when you have it, okay?
You need it? No, we don't have one.
That's
here.
okay. All right, listen carefully. Are you still right by him?
Yes, I'm right
I
here.
want you to lay him flat on his back on the ground and remove any pillows or anything underneath his head, okay?
Yeah, he's flat on his back.
Put one hand on his forehead, your other hand under his neck, and tilt his head back.
Okay, it is.
Put your ear next to his mouth. Can you feel or hear any breathing?
Yes, he's gasping for air.
Yeah.
Gasping for air.
Okay. All right, then. I want you to make sure that he's still flat on the ground. I want you to place the heel of your hand on his breastbone in the center of the chest, right between the nipples, okay? Put your other hand on top of that.
Yep.
You're going to pump the chest hard and fast at least twice per second and 2 inches deep, okay?
Yes.
All right, tell me when you start pumping, okay? I want you guys to count those compressions out loud, okay, so I can hear you. 1, 2, 3, 4. You're going to keep doing that until they get there, okay?
Yep.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4.
You
still doing that?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, you're doing a great job. Let me know when they're right there in the room with you.
Hey, okay. Just pulled up.
Okay. Keep going until they're in the room.
Jeff, do you need stove? Oh, I can go. Okay. Come on, Mike. Come on, Mike. They're on site. They're coming down the hall.
You did a great job.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye.
The guy on that 911 call, the one turning purple, gasping for air, was me. My name is Mike Broderick, and on May 18, 2017, at 3:19 in the afternoon, I suffered an out-of-hospital cardiac arrest at work. My heart stopped, and I died. The last thing that I remember that day is I was sitting at my desk and I spun around and filed a piece of paper, and as I spun back toward the front of the desk, I became lightheaded, really lightheaded. And I remember thinking to myself, whoa, I've never felt like this before. And as I was putting my head on my arms on the desk, I heard a voice. And that voice said, Mike, stand up, Mike. And as I began to push my 250-pound body off of the desk, my body crashed to the floor. And if it weren't for me standing up that day, my coworkers would never have heard me, and I would not be here today. Would you know how to recognize a sudden cardiac arrest? Would you know what to do? Would you have the courage to step in and actually save a person's life? By a show of hands, how many people here know how to perform CPR? Whoa, wow. That's incredible. I mean, that's totally awesome, because the only thing that is going to save a person in cardiac arrest is starting CPR and the use of an AED, an automated external defibrillator, to shock that person's heart back into northern rhythm. Now, research has shown that hands-only CPR can be an effective response in a cardiac arrest. It'll continue to push the blood through the body and provide the organs and the brain with oxygen. Anyone can save a life. A sudden cardiac arrest is a life-threatening emergency that it occurs when a person's heart just stops beating. And your quick response could save that person's life. A sudden cardiac arrest is not a heart attack. It's worse. A sudden cardiac arrest is it's an electrical problem. The heart gets confused, and then it stops beating, and then the person will collapse because of a lack of oxygen, and they won't be breathing. They may be gasping for air, kind of like you heard on the 911 call, but that's not breathing. They need CPR immediately, and they need an AED, an automated external defibrillator, to shock that heart back into rhythm. Now, a heart attack, on the other hand, that's a plumbing problem. And that's where the heart can't push the blood through the veins and the arteries because there's blockage there. And the person will be conscious. They will be awake. The heart's still beating, and you can respond and talk to them. Now, they're going to be in pain, but they do not need CPR. They do not need an AED. They do need to go to the hospital, so call 911. Now, if left untreated, that heart attack can result in a sudden or out-of-hospital cardiac arrest. So, over 356,000 people a year in the United States will suffer an out-of-hospital cardiac arrest. That's 978 people every day. One every 90 seconds. Through the course of my TEDx talk, 10 people somewhere in the United States are going to suffer out-of-hospital cardiac arrest. Cardiac arrest kills more people every year than breast cancer, lung cancer, prostate cancer, colon cancer, HIV, pneumonia, auto accidents, and firearms combined. For every minute without CPR, a person in sudden cardiac arrest, their chances of survival will decrease by 10%. And the only things that will save it is quick response. Call 911, start CPR, look for an AED. But most importantly, it's that starting of the CPR. We can wait for the ambulance and the EMTs, but it'd be great to have that AED there to zap it back into a rhythm right away. Even if you have never been trained in CPR, and you guys didn't see, I swear, there's about 50% of the people out there know how to do CPR. If you're not one of them, don't be afraid to start CPR. You know why? Because any CPR is better than no CPR. Sudden cardiac arrest can happen to anyone, young, old, male, female, any nationality, teenagers, children. No discrimination when it comes to cardiac arrest. Today, only 100 out of 1,000 people who suffer an out-of-hospital cardiac arrest will survive.
Those are pretty alarming statistics.
Our heart
but
is
to
an
hear them
amazing
again,
organ. It works hard for us every
this
second
is
of every
another
day,
video that will
delivering blood
tell
and
you a little bit
oxygen
about
to every cell in
the
our body.
AED.
But when sudden cardiac arrest strikes, our heart suddenly and unexpectedly stops beating effectively and blood flow stops. Without any intervention, the brain, vital organs, and our heart will begin to die. Beginning CPR is the person's only chance of survival. Brain damage will start to set in within 4 minutes, and after 10 minutes, brain damage becomes irreversible. The power to save a life is truly in your hands. Performing CPR accomplishes 2 critical things. 1, compressions move oxygenated blood to the brain to keep the brain alive. And 2, compressions keep blood and oxygen moving to the heart muscle itself, so that it has the best chance of resuming a normal electrical rhythm after a shock is delivered. As you begin compressions, you are creating an artificial pump and doing the work of the heart manually. With each good, effective compression, you are building up pressure in the system, which will move blood around the heart and up to the brain. It does take time to get the blood moving with CPR, so it is very important to push hard and push fast to build the pressure up, which keeps blood going to the brain. Pushing down at least 2 inches allows for the heart to be squeezed and blood to move out. Pushing at a rate of 100 to 120 compressions per minute is necessary to keep blood pumping. Let's see what happens when we take our hands off the chest. Blood stops moving to the brain. It is for this reason that if you are taking your hands off the chest to deliver breaths or switching roles, it is critical to minimize time off the chest. Watch what happens when we don't push deep enough. Blood does not reach the brain.
What's right here?
The same is true if we do not push fast enough. Watch what happens when we push too fast. The heart does not have time to refill with blood, therefore not enough blood gets pumped out. Watch what happens when we don't allow the body to decompress and allow the chest to fully recoil. The heart does not have a chance to refill with blood, therefore no blood gets pumped out. So remember, the key purpose of delivering compressions is to keep oxygenated blood moving within the heart and up to the brain to keep the brain alive. We need to push hard and push fast in the center of the chest. If ribs break, that's okay. What's not okay is allowing the brain to die from a lack of oxygen. So remember, you are their only hope. Do the best you can and don't give up until medical help arrives or an AED is present. You can do it.
Try this. Put one hand, the palm, over the back of the other hand. Now lace the fingers of the top hand through the bottom hand. This is the position for your hands to render CPR. It doesn't matter which one's on top. Do whatever's most comfortable for you. But the bottom hand has fingers extended. Top hand has fingers laced through the bottom hand. Okay? With the heel of your bottom hand, you administer the compression pulses to the victim's chest. Where on the chest? Right in the center. Right in the center. Everybody's heart's in the same place. Okay? Don't have to keep looking for it and listening to it and checking the pulse. Lace your fingers together. Put the heel of your hand in the center of the chest and press. How hard do you press? You should compress the chest wall approximately 2 inches deep. Now, obviously, a smaller individual would be 1.5 inches deep. But if you don't give a deep enough thrust, even though the ribs break, ribs heal, brains don't. New news bulletin there. So that's your position. Let's look a little bit at the history of CPR. Resuscitation of individuals who appear to have died has been going on since the very beginning of recorded medicine. Back in the periods of the ancient Egyptians, who basically initiated the idea of medical care from one individual to another. 2500 BC, a long time ago, were the first recorded attempts at resuscitation. In the 1500s, the focus was really on trying to breathe for the person who stopped breathing. We didn't understand anything about the heart or the pulse or circulation or anything like that. This person is unresponsive and he's not breathing. He needs to breathe. We will breathe for him. And so they used billows like you used to start a fire with in your fireplace. And they would put the nipple of the billows in the victim's mouth, and seal his lips around it and pump the lungs full and then relax. And pump the lungs full and then relax. That was the way that resuscitation was done from the 1500s through the 1700s. It was in 1966 that cardiopulmonary resuscitation was initially approved for performance by the general public. That's not that long ago, 1966. I graduated from college in 1967. That is not that long ago. This is modern American history tonight on Wednesday night, okay? 2008, the American Heart Association approved the use of hands-only resuscitation, which means not making any attempt to fill the lungs. You basically use your hands only to compress the chest and make use of the blood, of the oxygen that is still in that stagnant blood that isn't flowing. Get the blood flowing, and that oxygen will reach the brain and save the brain cells. Let's back up a little bit. In 1775, again a long time ago, 600 years ago, if my math is right, there was a veterinarian who shocked a chicken's head and killed the chicken. And then he shocked the chest of the chicken. These are with bare electrical wires. shocked the chest of the chicken several times, and the chicken started breathing again. That's the first recorded cardiac defibrillation of an animal. It was the Dutch in the 1700s, the 18th century, and it was one of Colonel Sanders' best. Almost 1900 at the University of Geneva, they did the same thing with a dog, making progress. We're working our way up the evolutionary chain, right, from the birds to the mammals. In 1946, the Soviets were the first to use a closed chest massage to revive a dog. Closed chest means we're not opening the chest and reaching in to massage the heart. Hold that thought, because for decades and decades and decades, although closed chest massage like CPR techniques can actually pump blood for the heart, it was felt like that was too inefficient, and we needed to open the chest and reach in and squeeze the heart like a sponge. Okay? So open chest cardiac massage was the preferred technique for ages. 1947, I remember this because I was 2. Dr. Beck in Cleveland resuscitated the first human, a 14-year-old boy, who had died during the course of surgery. He did this with open chest cardiac massage, open chest, but saved the boy's life. It was in 1957 at Johns Hopkins. That was 57, not that long ago. At Johns Hopkins, closed chest defibrillation became portable. Instead of having to use a wall socket, they developed this battery-powered electrical device for shocking the heart through the closed chest. But it weighed 250 pounds. So although it was battery powered and you didn't have to plug it in, you couldn't get it anywhere. So it wasn't very portable, and it wasn't very useful. In the 1970s, yesterday, in the 1970s was when the first public automatic electronic defibrillators became available. And after that, there were movements by the American Heart Association, primarily, to distribute these throughout the public for use. All right, here's some basics. I told you we'll have a little bit of repetition here, but we'll build each time. So stay with us. CPR basics are as simple as ABC. At least it used to be that simple. But this will get the job done. ABC is check the airway and make sure there is an open airway. Should the individual start breathing again, he's got nothing stuck in his throat or her throat. Okay. B is breathing, spontaneous breathing. We want to encourage that, but not provide it artificially. The most important is C, which is circulation. And the circulation is administered through chest compression. I want you to notice in the illustration here, I'm going to add this because it doesn't get talked about very much, but what's going on here? We're elevating this victim's legs. You can get the second person who's there, or the first other passerby, put something under his legs, or squat down and hold his ankles up. Why? Because some of that oxygenated blood in his legs will flow by gravity back to his torso, back to his heart. It still has oxygen in it, and it returns a larger volume of blood to the heart that will ultimately get to the brain. If you leave the legs dangling over the side of the sofa, that's wasted blood. It's wasted oxygen. And every time you compress the heart, it pumps more blood into the legs. It's useless. So elevate the legs and give more oxygenated circulating volume to the individual. Ask somebody else to call 911 to assist you. The hands-only technique. Do it again so it's second nature. Extend one hand, put the other one on the back. Lace the fingers of the upper hand through the bottom hand, and you're ready for CPR. Middle of the chest. Don't do this on the sofa, on the mattress. Somebody is lying in bed. This is so convenient because I'm standing up, she's lying down. It's really easy. Get them off the bed on the floor. They need something very hard behind them so that you have effective thrusts with your compression. They should be on something solid. How fast do you push? The cadence we've said should be about twice per second. It's about 100 times to 120 times per minute. If you get excited and you're going faster than that or slower than that, this is the same rhythm as the hymn, Onward Christian Soldiers. All right? Onward Christian soldiers marching as to war. If you can remember just that, it'll keep your cadence for pumping at the right speed, twice per second. Okay? All right. Little tips. If there are one or two people, one does the compressions, the other one
This
goes for
video
help.
is intended to help you understand how an AED works. The ECG strip you are going to see is from Steve's actual save, a real person who is alive today because of an AED and some good Samaritans who took action. Once you turn on an AED, the machine will begin to speak to you. Follow the voice prompts. Once the pads have been placed, the AED will instruct you to stand clear and to not touch the patient while it does an ECG of the heart. The AED is designed to determine if the heart is in a normal rhythm or if it needs to be shocked. In this case, the heart is in ventricular fibrillation, the most common rhythm when someone goes into sudden cardiac arrest. Notice how the heart is not beating effectively. It has electrical activity, but it is uncoordinated. The heart looks like it is shaking like a bowl of jelly. When in this rhythm, you can see the heart is not effectively pumping any blood out. This rhythm is deadly and has to be stopped. When the AED reads a shockable rhythm, the AED will either instruct you to press the shock button, or some AEDs are automatic and will automatically shock the person. At this point, no one should be touching the patient. The AED will send an electrical current through the heart and back again. The purpose of this shock is to stop the heart completely for a very short period of time from this uncoordinated rhythm and give it time to reset. Notice how the shock stopped all the electrical activity in Steve's heart for a brief period. Seconds after this shock, our own SA node, the pacemaker of our heart, will try to regain control of the heart and tell the rest of the heart when to squeeze. It can take up to 2 minutes for the heart to reorganize itself electrically after a shock, before it will function again and effectively pump blood to the brain. This is why you will be instructed to begin CPR immediately after the shock. Your job is to push hard and fast in the center of the chest in order to manually pump blood to the brain, to keep the brain alive. Your compressions will not interfere with the heart trying to reorganize itself electrically, so do not worry about that. After 2 minutes, the AED will instruct you to stop CPR. It will reanalyze the heart and advise whether another shock is needed. Always listen to the machine and follow the voice prompts. In Steve's case, the ECG picked up a healthy rhythm and therefore a second shock was not advised. In Steve's case, only one shock was required to bring him back to life. Steve's heart continues to beat, and he is alive and with us today.
Watch this. This is a reenactment, but or a staged event, but it could happen anywhere.
Are you okay? Are you okay? You, call 911. You, get an AED.
This is a scene that plays out over 1,000 times every day in the United States. If you see or find an adult or teen who has collapsed, they could be in cardiac arrest, and you need to act now. Assess for any signs of movement or normal breathing. If the person has slow, deep gasps, this is not the same as breathing. Call 911 or direct someone to call. Treat. Press hard and fast on the center of the chest. Place the heel of your dominant hand directly on the center of the chest and interlock the fingers of your other hand. Keep your arms straight and lean over the victim, using your body to compress the chest. Push down hard. You need to compress the chest at least 2 inches and push 2 times every second or 120 times per minute. Allow the chest to recoil completely with each compression. If the victim is on a soft surface, like a bed or a couch, move them to the ground before beginning compressions. You may have heard in the past that you must do mouth-to-mouth ventilations. Mouth-to-mouth is not needed for adults or teens and could be harmful. Perform chest compressions only. However, mouth-to-mouth is needed for young children and infants. While performing chest compressions, direct someone close by to get an AED. The AED, or automated external defibrillator, is the only thing that will shock the victim's heart back into normal function. When the AED arrives to the victim, simply turn it on and follow the voice-guided instructions.
Unit, okay. Stay calm. Check responsiveness. Call for help. Attach defib pads to patient's bare chest. Don't touch patient. Analyzing. Don't touch patient. Analyzing. Shock advised. Don't touch patient. Press flashing shock button. Shock delivered. Start CPR.
The AED will only deliver a shock to someone who needs it, so do not be afraid to put it on anyone who is unconscious. Now that you know how to act, let's watch this again.
I think you've memorized it. The good news at First Baptist is we have installed automatic electronic defibrillators on both the first floor and the second floor, so they are available. How many of you know where one is? So about a third. I'm going to call on my friend Matthew Lohr again. He put this video together with Alan Cumbia. I think they did a beautiful job. So watch closely and tuck the information away. This is Matt. Matt is, I think I told you, is an EMT, an emergency medical technician here in Richmond, has been for years and years. He has a fairly senior position. He's also a member of this church, and he is the director or coordinator of our First Responders program, which is physicians and nurses in the congregation that rotate stations to try and be on hand in any group gathering. And Matthew coordinates all of that.
take a quick tour and see where our church AEDs are. There are two. They're both set up identically, and then following that, we'll look at what equipment is contained with each. I'm here outside of our sanctuary in the main hallway between the sanctuary and the receptionist's office. When you exit the sanctuary, if you look to the left of the receptionist's office, you will see our first floor AED. It's in this white case. Turn the handle and open the door, and the AED is right here. Our second AED is on the second floor, immediately next to the main elevator. It's across from suite 250. It's also in a white box. Turn this handle. The AED and other equipment is just inside. Let's take a look and see what's in each AED equipment package. When you open the case, you'll find the AED as well as two different pad cartridges. The pad cartridge that's installed is for an adult, 55 pounds or greater. If you are dealing with a child or someone under 55 pounds, there's a pediatric cartridge in the top part of the case. That's located right here, as well as an additional battery. It's important to select the right pad cartridge because the machine will recognize which cartridge is installed and deliver the correct energy dose. The green button powers it on. This button labeled I is an informational button. If you press it, it will walk you through the steps to take, and this orange button delivers a shock. This lever deploys the defibrillation pads, and behind it, if you pull this lever, you can switch over to the pediatric pads.
Insert pads cartridge.
The machine will recognize which cartridge is installed.
Infant child pads.
Connected to the AED, there are two small bags. Inside this bag is an adult face mask with a filter. There's a separate package with gloves, a razor, a pad, and a set of shears. This is all important equipment. The shears are for removing clothing quickly so that you can apply these pads. The gauze is for drying someone's chest. The chest needs to be dry to promote good adhesion. The razor is for shaving chest hair if needed. These pads have to have good adhesion to the chest to work properly. This bag contains a second adult face mask as well as an infant size face mask. The combination of these masks will fit most faces from adult all the way down to infant. Thanks for joining me on this tour. Next time you're at church, please take note of where our AEDs are located so that if someone should need one, you're prepared to help.
I think he did a beautiful job with that tour. If I pass out and fall down on the stage and stop breathing, I'm confident that most of you still in here know at least the basics for how to get my heart started again. And remember, the downstairs and the upstairs AED locations. The downstairs is at that end of the hall, and the upstairs is at this end of the hall. So no matter where you are in the building, there should be one that's fairly close by if I need it. Questions? Yes, ma'am. You use the AED at any time. If the person is conscious, then he will not be in cardiac arrest, right? He may be having a heart attack with chest pain and complaining, but if he's conscious and can tell you what's hurting, he is not in cardiac arrest. If he is unconscious, no matter what his heart is doing, have somebody get that AED. Put the pads on upper right shoulder, upper right chest, lower left chest, and hit the information button, and it will do a heart tracing and talk to you. Does he need to be shocked? Does he not? One thing they did not explain very thoroughly, thank you for asking that. One thing they did not explain very thoroughly is before you press the shock button, no one should be touching the patient. They said that. Why? Well, of course you'd get shocked, but you'd also drain the power of the shock away from the patient who needs it. Okay, so if we're holding on to him, it's going to hurt two people at the same time. Okay, so make sure everybody's clear before pressing the shock button. Yes, ma'am. None of them noticed.
I can't pronounce the word. Can you shed any light on this?
A little bit. If there was no preliminary history and he had no symptoms going into it, he probably was one of the 356,500 Americans who suffer the same thing in this country every year. A sudden cardiac arrest. It's an electrical event. It's an electrical event in the heart where the electrical signals don't stimulate the muscle to beat, and it just begins to jiggle basically in the chest, ineffectively. Most likely. I'm sorry for the loss of your son.
I had a couple of years, 2-3 years ago, I had a valve, heart valve
replacement.
A heart valve
Replacement.
Well, no, not replacement, but it was redirected, and where the blood was going the wrong way, and he turned it around. Okay. It's called. I couldn't think of the name of it right now, but now I have a defibrillator and a pacemaker. What does a pacemaker do? And does it keep me alive, or does it break down the possibilities of me having had a heart attack?
That's a great question. An implanted pacemaker is indicated when an individual has a history of irregular heartbeat. The implanted pacemaker monitors your heartbeat at all times, and if the heart electrical cadence gets scrambled, the implanted pacemaker will trigger a shock to do exactly what those AEDs do, but internally. It will shock the heart, make it shut up electrically for the moment, and reset its own electrical circuitry. Good. Okay. And you know what would be a really good idea? Maybe put them on the base of the platform at the back where people are exiting. What Debbie Boykin, thank you, Debbie, has brought are some handouts for you to take home. Read them at your leisure, but they'll be back here on the platforms. You can pick them up on your way out. We have 3 minutes until the building explodes. I can take one more question. One more question. Good.
Bruce?
How easy it is to tell whether somebody's having a heart attack?
You don't care. But to answer your question is, if they talk to you, they're probably having a heart attack as opposed to a sudden cardiac arrest. With a sudden cardiac arrest, you go unconscious just as soon as the brain cells sense a lack of oxygen. If they're talking to you, they don't need CPR intervention. They do need an ambulance, but not CPR. If they've had the chest pain initially and have a history of chest pain and then go unconscious in the floor, then it resets the protocol. If they're unconscious, start CPR, go for an AED. If you shock someone unnecessarily, they're not going to care. If they're unconscious, you know, they really are not going to mind, and it might help out. Thanks everybody for being here. Robert, do you have an announcement?
Thank you, Dr. Whipple. This is very, very informative for me, and I think for the rest of us. Be careful going down the steps, just in case. Do not do that again. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Before you leave, each and every one of you can pray. So I invite you to come over here where Allison is. She's got the board there, and I know Dr. Whipple is going over there, and he's going to sign up to pray for somebody. And so I have a hunch you could do that too. Thanks for being here. It is always good to be with you on Wednesdays and Sundays. God bless. Love you.